All right, everybody, it's story time with Dude, or something like that. All right, today we're gonna keep it pretty simple. This is not like a life lesson. This is not a, I don't know what you want to say. Yeah, this isn't like there's no real moral to the story. We all have scars, right? This is for my posterity. This is for curious followers of the channel. We all have scars in our life, right? We all got injured throughout our life. This is a story time video. It's about some of my past and how things happened to me. Then I got a question for you at the end. So before we get to the question, let me just tell you the story. This probably won't be that long of a video. I have a scar right here. Now, you may have noticed it in some of the videos. Besides an immaculate head of hair, I have a scar on my forehead. And no, I'm not Voldemort. There's no Harry Potter story. It's just a straight scar, right? So how did I get that? I don't even remember how old I was. I think I was probably like 8 or 7. The house that I grew up in had a big sprawling front porch, right? I mean, it wasn't a huge house. Don't get me wrong. We were po, Had a nice big front porch though, going across the whole front of the house. Had a front door. Had a couple cement stairs coming down the front door. You walked out the front door, onto the porch, down 2 stairs, and then there was a front yard. Well, if you were to go, so let's say the front door is here, and this is the left side of the house. If you're looking, it's probably backwards to you guys. My left, right? The left side of the house, and the front door is over here, right? There was a big old bush at the end of that porch. What we would do is we would go down the 2 stairs, me and neighbor kids, friends, whatever. We would run around the big bush, and on the side of the house, that porch was actually about, let's say 3 to 4 feet off the ground. Now, probably closer to 3 to 3.5 feet. It wasn't quite 48 inches. There's no way. Maybe 3 feet. Let's go 3 feet. It really doesn't matter. But it was elevated, right? So if the porch was here, well, right down below here, if this is the top of the porch, right? Well, below at the bottom, there was like a little brick, planter bed. There were some rose bushes in there. I remember. So we would get playing like tag, and I remember I was pretty young. I don't know, this is the 80s, dude. Well, yeah, this is probably like 1980 about. So, we may have been playing like freeze tag, cartoon tag, little elementary school type games. Like I said, I was pretty young. But I remember we were just chasing each other, going down the stairs, around the big bush, and jump up onto the porch, run down across the porch and around the stairs again, just booking it, making circles, chasing each other. That's what kids do, right? We're easily entertained the days before the iPod or the iPod. Holy cow, how old am I? Before the iPhone, before technology and tablets in our hands, right? So we were entertaining ourselves the way kids would. And I remember, I don't remember much but I remember maybe it had rained, or maybe the sprinklers came on. Probably the sprinklers came on. Well, that little brick planter box was wet. You can see it already, right? Scar, wet brick, running around. So exactly what you think happened. We're booking it around. I'm young, I'm a little boy, and went to jump up off the brick onto the porch, right? And slipped. My foot slipped on the bricks, and my head, bam, just right on the corner of the cement, laid there. And I basically blacked out, but I do remember looking up. I remember it hurt, obviously, and I remember feeling like blood trickling. And the only thing else I remember, it had to have looked like a freaking Hollywood movie execution style gunshot wound. There was literally a puddle of blood, probably like this, around my head. And I was laying there, and I remember one of the kids ran in, got my mom, and she ran out and I mean, she was like pretty much flipping out. And I'm now, there's just glimpses. Like, I remember my dad running out, he had some towels, boom, like packing my head with towels. And I know we went in the house. And aside from that, I don't really remember the drive to the hospital. I think I had like, I think they told me it was like 8 stitches. And I don't know if there was any internal stitches to pull it together, but you know, I got a pretty good scar. I you know, insert I tried to take a picture, a video of it, but it's, you can see it. It glistens in the light right here, you know? And I've always had that my whole life, and it's like this long. It's like pretty big. It starts right there and ends right here, so, you know? So, that's how I got that, you know? I was little. Like I said, I don't really remember a lot of, I just remember glimpses of those details. I've got another couple beauties, and I'll see if I can, you probably can't see them, but sorry for having such hideous legs, but I'll insert a picture, but I've got them, I've got 2 right on the front of my calves, and I'll insert, I did take a little video, here it is right here, but you can see on my right calf, this one was actually the bigger one. It's quite faded now. And on the other leg, there was another one. This one was more like a scrape that kind of scarred up because it was a pretty bad scrape at the time. And this, again, that's not even the worst thing. I remember being younger and going, oh, those made my legs ugly. Well, yeah, now it's the diabetes. So I don't have pretty legs. I get people that ask me all the time, why are you so tan? I'm like, it's not tan. It's like burst capillaries from edema and swelling. And so, yeah, not fun. That's never going away, which is why we're on a weight loss journey. But anyway, it's story time. So let's focus on that. So how did I get those 2 scars? Well, I had to have been about 18 or 19. Remember hanging out at my friend's house, and you know, there was about a block away, there was a big family. They owned a McDonald's here in town. They owned local McDonald's, and you know, they had a big old nice house. They had this big rectangle trampoline. Now, we used to go jump on this thing all the time, and it was rickety. It was like a big rectangle one. It was older, had no pad on the, you know, had rusty old springs, no pad on it. There were screws sticking out of it where there probably was a pad before. It was on uneven ground, so when you bounced, you'd kind of, you know, be like, you know, it wasn't like straight up and down. It was like you'd be kind of thrown a little bit. But, and it was dark. It happened to be an evening in the summer, probably around 8 to 8:30. The sun's starting to go down, so it's kind of getting dark. And we're teenagers. I mean, we used to strap up our snowboards and like duct tape the sides of our snowboards, and we would snowboard on this thing and we'd practice, like, you know, grabs and tweaks and backflips and things like that. And all our buddies would go over there, and it was always a good time. Well, this one particular night, there was a bunch of guys and there was also a bunch of girls. So guess who wanted to get up on the trampoline and show off like a stupid teenager? This guy right here. So I'm up there and I could feel it. I could tell that it was on unlevel ground, and you would bounce and it would kind of throw you funny. And, but I mean, we had been over there like quite a bit from up the street, and I'd been on plenty of other trampolines. So I could do backflips. I could do layouts, you know, just boom, a layout backflip. So here I am thinking I'm cool. I'm trying to show off for the babes, right? And I get down there and I get on one end and I'm thinking I'm going to do a backflip, right? Just boom. I should, you know, I should just be able to do that. Well, it caught me off balance, a little bit off guard. It was bouncing me funny. And instead of just doing a flip, you know, we just kind of stay in the middle, I was kind of on one end and I went this way, right? So stupid. But I bounced, I flipped, I went the length of the trampoline. Now, here's the cringy part. So, you know, like here's the bar of the trampoline, right? And then you got like springs. And then here's like the pad of the trampoline, right? So there's that gap, usually where there's a nice foam pad. Well, there was no foam pad. And my legs, when I flipped, they went backwards and like wedged right around the springs, and my legs bent like this, and I was like wedged in between the springs and the bar and the pad, and on my right leg, they just folded and jammed in there right around one between, in between three springs there. I was in the two openings, and my leg, as it went down and it was forced to bend, went right down a rusty screw. I was like, I probably sweared and let out some words, and I went, but trying to be cool, like I was immediately in shock, and I pushed myself and I forced my legs out, and I jumped off the trampoline. For a minute you're trying to be like, man, well, that sucks. That was embarrassing. Yeah, you're trying to be cool. And one of my buddies is like, dude, look at your leg. And I looked down at my right calf, and it is like literally football shape, just split wide open. There's my shin bone just sitting right there, like the skin just like peeled back. It was perfectly white, nothing, no blood, no anything. It was just skin peeled back, and there was like the bone. And as I sat there, then the blood started to ooze, and they're like, we got to get you inside. Luckily, the person's house we're at, their parents were home. And I remember they rushed me in there. They, again, like packed it with some towels, some ice, some whatever. They're like, we got to get you to the hospital. This is not a Band-Aid situation, right? And the other leg, the left leg, was just kind of, like really torn up. But it wasn't like split, like gashed open. But it was, it was tore up. And so that side ended up getting cleaned up, bandaged, whatever. I remember sitting in the emergency room. Ooh, they start pouring like alcohol, and we gotta clean this. They got like a scrub brush, and I'm just like dying, And then they came in and they put in the painkiller so they could get in there and stitch it up. And oh my God, that was worse than the accident, I think. Those pain numbing shots. Then finally it goes numb. They ended up doing 4 internal stitches and 28 stitches right down the front of the shin, and just sewed it up like overhand sewing, went all the way up. Took a while for those things to dissolve and come out. And when the doctor finally pulled them out, it kind of spread a little bit. It didn't stay like perfectly like a nice seam that would heal up nice. It kind of like spread. And so I kind of has had this little spread scar about probably 3 inches long going down my shin since I was about 19 years old. And there's no real object of the lesson. I want to share those stories before I forget. My kids have been injured. I remember my son Dallin was swinging on a gate when he was like, I don't know, 6 years old or something. He was little. And his foot got stuck where the hinge goes, and it literally just pushed his little baby pinky toe and like a grape. It was split at the end. Took him in. I remember that was horrible. His pain was like out there, and when he had to get stitches to stitch it up, and he was little. I mean, things happen, right? Things happen to us as we're kids. Things happen to us as adults. We get injured. We get, luckily I never broke a bone, things like that. But I have had some cuts and bruises, and those are a couple of the most visible scars I've got. I've got another one. It's actually, I forgot about this one. I forgot about it right now. I've got one on my thigh above my knee. It's about this long. It's pretty dim now. This was a bonehead one. I remember I was at my friend's house, Steve. Oh, I was married. Oh my gosh, I was probably like, I don't even know. I was probably like 22 or 23. And we were cutting something. I don't even remember what we were doing. But I had scissors in my hand, and I was cutting. And I was sitting on the ground. Had the scissors in my hand, put my hands down to kind of, lift myself up. And I went, Indian style, cross-legged. And I sat back down and lo and behold, you know, the scissors were in my hand at an angle and my thigh literally just right onto the scissors stabbed me. That one hurt pretty bad. And that was like a total football puncture wound. And I remember we just cleaned it up and then butterflied that sucker. And so, yeah, I got a decent scar. Anyway, you know, someday my kids may look back on these story time videos. Curious, you know, subscribers may just be curious. But I want to share some of these memories. I want to share them. No big deal, no big moral of the story, but at the end of the day, we all have scars, don't we? And some of us have the battle wounds to show it. Some are way, way, way worse than me. Mine are very small in comparison. But then sometimes we have emotional scars too. And, you know, I think it's good to share the stories because it helps people understand, and I think especially like my children, understand what life was like before I met them. And I'm talking to them right now about going out and maybe having like a family campfire or something and just sharing stories about age 0 to 23 or 24 about when we had our oldest child. And, you know, just kind of telling them what life experiences shaped me into the man I am today and the father that I was, because maybe they'd hear some stories and they'd understand me a little bit better. You know, good, funny, maybe some a little sad, maybe some a little ugly. But I think it's important because there's a lot of things I wish I knew about my mom and dad. There's a lot of things I wish I knew about my grandma and grandpa. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm documenting this. It's not so I can publicly humiliate myself as a fat man on YouTube or anything. It's so there's something to look back on and hopefully entertain a few people along the way. So, and maybe motivate some people to get their butt off the couch and lose some weight right along with me. So anyway, we all have scars, you know, and we got to learn how to deal with them. So emotionally, we got to learn how to deal with them. The physical ones, we've dealt with them and we got the scars to prove it. So they're all just battle wounds in the story of life. And the fact that we're still here today listening or watching this video or me telling the story means we've made it through all the worst days of our lives and we're still here to tell the story. So anyway, tomorrow is an unstuck. We're back to the weight loss grind. This week is going incredible. And until then, I'll see you tomorrow. Dude, out.